And so I told the guy, we don't even serve lobster here.
Get ready to crush it. Crush it.
Yeah.
This is the Crush It Podcast with Matt and Mason.
All right, welcome back into the Crush It Podcast. I am your host, Mason Burchett, here with my co-host, the Matt Davis. Matt, how's it going, man?
It is going well. It's going well. How are you, Mason?
Doing well. Excited to be back on the podcast. Been looking forward to this.
Absolutely.
We sound a little different.
New things are happening.
We sound different, and that's because
We hope we sound different. We sound different to us.
We better.
Yeah.
If not, we'll re-record this until we do.
Absolutely.
So please don't touch that plant. We have invested in some new equipment. We've got new microphones.
I will touch your plant as
We've
many
got,
times as I want.
not sure what that means. We've got a new soundboard. We've got some new software.
It's exciting.
And all of these things combined has resulted in a new sound. We
sound.
are bringing you a crispier, more crisp, clearer version of our voices.
Yes, very cool. Very cool. And I'll tell you what, and I know I'm kind of jumping right into it here, but one thing I'm really excited about. So when the Crush It Podcast started, we had listened to other podcasts. You know, obviously we listened to those. And we had talked about it would be really cool if one day, as part of the Crush It Podcast, we had a Crush It button.
Ooh.
Which would be whenever maybe one of us or one of our guests says something that's just like, bam.
Like it makes the impact.
It just hits different. What we would call a Crush It moment. And we really want to emphasize that. And that's why, hang on. Be careful. So now we get to introduce to the Crush It listeners the Crush It button.
Crush it. Crush it.
There it is.
It just satisfied.
So we will be using that button anytime something is said that we're just like, or if it's a really boring episode and we feel like we need to wake people up.
We'll just go.
Through, we'll just
Crush it. Crush it.
like that. Yeah. Oh, whoa, what did I miss?
I was on the road, and so those moments. So
it's our public service announcement.
It's what we do. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Just all the way around, some really exciting things happening around the Crush It brand.
That's right. Yeah. So we are scheduling an episode. We will make some announcements on some decisions that we have already made and some events
It's done.
we have
Y'all
already
just
planned.
can't know about it.
Yeah, this is already going, and we can't tell you about it yet. But we are super stoked.
I know something.
And I'm
you
also,
don't know.
I was going to say, I'm also getting some satisfaction on talking about it and keeping things a secret.
Yeah.
It does something for me.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
But in all seriousness, we do have some big boy moves that we have made.
Ooh.
You like that?
I do.
With the brand, and we are excited.
Very
ecstatic
excited.
to announce
I mean,
those
honestly,
in about 4 weeks.
Yeah, in about 4 weeks. And honestly, we're really just we talk to y'all all the time about
Are you
pursuing
okay?
your dreams. I'm good. A little
Because with the new mics, everybody can hear
everybody
that.
can hear everything. So, we always talk about pursue your dreams, hit those goals, don't settle. And so we're making some moves to live out what we tell other people to do.
It has been a
really
growing experience, Matt. A growing experience. We have grown. The podcast is coming up on 2 years.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, which is crazy. And we have grown a lot. We've grown the brand, which brings us to the topic of today's episode. We're talking about growing pains.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We have been able to bring some fantastic guests to our listeners and excited. We've got quite a few of those planned for the next several weeks. And so we're excited about that. And we've brought some really good information, some good stories, some good topics. But with it just being back to me and you again, this is a subject we've talked about a lot. And, it does fit well because in the journey of success in an everyday life, and when you're trying to achieve more than just the status quo and you're trying to be who you've decided you want to be, deciding what success is, there's always some pain that comes along with that. Growing up, I don't know how many times, I know my parents said it multiple times, my mom, but it seemed like it was always one of my grandmothers that would always say, if my legs were hurting or my back was hurting, they'd be, Don't worry about it. It's growing pains.
It's growing
Whereas,
pains.
honestly, in 2021, we'd probably be at the doctor. Like,
Right.
what's wrong? Do X-rays. But
Grandma, my leg's bleeding. It's growing pains.
it's growing pains. You're good. And but honestly, growing pains as you're growing, it's a real thing.
Sure.
And we accept it. We just know, hey, if I'm going to get to where I'm supposed to be, if we didn't have those growing pains and we didn't grow, there would be a real problem. You'd end up
Very short.
dying.
Okay.
I don't want to go there because I kind of am.
Oh,
So I want to bypass that. But
gotcha. You definitely grew.
thank you.
Just out, not up.
All right. And
That
so
was a fat joke.
I noticed that. Moving on. So, we accept it in our physical day-to-day lives, kids growing up. But the reality is, I could hear you swallow.
You're welcome.
This is insane.
Yeah, we're going to work on that, our microphone etiquette.
For real. But when it comes to reaching your goals,
Yeah.
achieving your dreams, if you're going to continue to grow as a person, as a human in your career, in your relationships, in everything you do in life,
Yep.
there's going to be some growing pains.
Yeah, and growing pains, that term is in reference to like some physical pain that kids endure while they're growing.
Right.
It also like references the different stages of life
Yes.
that kids go through and that parents have to deal with their kids, the adolescence and the preteens and the
100%.
pubescent stage and all the hormones and emotions that teenagers have. And those are all referenced to as growing pains. And like you said, that's all stuff that we hear a lot talked about in personal lives and raising kids and all that kind of stuff. But growing pains exist in other areas of life too. They exist in business startups.
Absolutely.
They exist in personal development.
Yeah.
And so those growing pains in those areas are kind of what we want to hone in on today and really focus on and talk about.
And so as we kind of jump into that, growth, if you're going to grow, it means there's changes being made.
Yeah.
Right. And so along with growth comes change.
Yep.
And, it seems like one of the hot topics.
If you could get your phone off of that,
sorry,
that'd be
if
great.
I could do that.
Yeah.
So one of the phrases that's used a lot is people, after somebody makes a decision to really pursue their goals, pursue their dreams, and make some changes in their lives. One thing that a lot of people say is like, well, you've changed. You're just changing so much.
You're not who you used to be.
You're not who you used to be. And the reality is, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
You know
that's
what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah, you're
Because
right.
the reality is, if we're not changing, we're not growing.
That's true.
We're stuck in a stagnant place, and it's really important for us to realize that change is not only okay, but it's needed. If you can look back and you are the exact same person today that you were 5 years ago, you've missed something.
Yeah, that's good. Because the truth is, like you said, change is a good thing, and it's also needed.
Yeah.
Because if I had the same mentality, passions, goals that I had 7 years ago,
Yeah.
I'd still be doing what I was doing
Exactly.
7 years ago, right?
Exactly.
And so that's evolved as I've learned things, as I've read books, as
Yeah.
I've met people, as I've had experiences, as I've had opportunities.
Right.
Those things have all resulted in change,
Yep.
changes of job position,
Yep.
changes of people that I hang around with,
Yeah.
which is a whole thing we could talk about.
For sure.
And changes of geographical location. I've moved several times,
Yeah.
and the result of those change has resulted in growth.
Yeah.
And controlled growth for a purpose, which is a really important part of this.
Absolutely. And when you think about change, as you talk about leaving certain locations and making changes in your career and your job, there is an element of emotional pain.
Of course.
The relationships, the attachments, but along with that growth and that experience, if you're not having that, the reality is you're never going to get what is it that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over.
I've seen
expecting
that.
different
I should
results.
probably make sure that that's actually the definition, but I have seen
But
that.
I've heard that said a lot, and so so many people
Must be true then.
I mean, I saw it online.
Right.
Gotta be true, right? I think Abraham Lincoln posted that.
Ah.
And so, if we're not willing to deal with these pains of changing and we expect things to get better, then really we're just lying to ourselves, we're fooling ourselves, and we're hoping. And we go back to that, the danger of hope, where we sit around hoping for something better, hoping for more, without making those necessary changes and not wanting that pain of growth.
It's like this. I mean, you can't stop it. Change is going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And so the people that are saying, I don't like change. I don't like it when things change. Well, that's fine. You don't have to like it. Right. That doesn't change the fact that change is going to happen.
Right.
And so it's similar to the failure conversation. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
It's what you learn from it.
Exactly.
It's how you decide to grow from it.
Well, and we can go back, and this would be kind of a sidetrack, but just to hit it on the way through, there are a lot of companies we could go back to who 10 years ago decided not to grow and change.
Ooh.
And now they don't exist.
Here's an example.
They're not here anymore.
Here's an example. I was actually reading about this one the other day. Kodak. Well, Kodak, the camera guys,
right.
the filmmakers or whatever. They actually had somebody on staff that brought them back in the early days, and I don't remember the year, but brought them a digital camera.
Really?
And he was like, this is the future. We can do this.
Yeah.
They shelved it. They hid it. They did not allow it to go to public
They were
release
scared by it.
because they were making so much money selling film for wind-up cameras and stuff. How did that work out? Yeah. They were resistant to the change. They didn't want to see any change. And now, does anybody use film anymore? Of course not. Another example of this that blew me away was a guy by the name of George Bell.
Okay.
Not the baseball player.
Okay.
This guy was the CEO of a company called Excite. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Does it ring a George Bell?
Rings a George Bell.
Okay. But how much do you know about the company Excite?
Nothing.
Not very much, because they went bankrupt in the year 2001.
Okay.
Before they went bankrupt, Excite was one of the big benefactors of the tech boom, right?
Okay.
So obviously they didn't realize there was a tech bubble and everything was going to crash.
Right.
But back in the day, they were one of the big guys that were really benefiting from the tech rise.
Yeah.
And so back in 1999, George Bell, the CEO of this company called Excite, was approached with this new idea, this revolutionary idea, this product, service, business model that was presented to him by a group of students from Stanford, I believe it was Stanford, that they offered it to Excite and to George Bell for their company to buy, right?
Really?
Yeah. And so they said, we'll sell you this business idea for $1 million, right? $1 million, which is a lot of money.
Right.
But
it's
compared
a lot
to the
now, but
compared to the growth
2000.
that Excite was having, it was not that big a deal.
Right.
And George Bell thought about it, said, thanks, but no thanks. These guys were desperate to sell their idea. They said, fine, $750,000, $250,000. Look, it's like the price of a house.
3/4. But go ahead.
What did I say?
You said $250,000.
Okay, $750,000. It's the price of a nice house, right?
Right.
They were going to sell this revolutionary business model for. He turned them down again because he didn't have time to change.
Right.
I like what we're doing. We're not interested in change. Didn't change. What happened?
Gone.
2 years later, George Bell's company Excite went bankrupt. Guess the name of the company that he turned down.
What?
Google. They went on to become Google, which has now got a market cap of like $1.48 trillion.
That's insane.
So their resistance to change, his resistance to entertain any kind of change, cost him literally almost $1.5 trillion.
That's insane. And honestly, we could probably spend the next 30, 45 minutes just off the top of our heads talking about business examples who didn't adapt, who haven't adapted to the e-commerce, the internet sales, and all of that. And, as we kind of dig into this and bring it back to a more personal level, anytime, and I'll be honest, one thing that kind of sparked this conversation is a little cartoon that floats around some of the entrepreneurial websites and things like that. And basically it's a caterpillar sitting across the table.
Oh, I love this one.
From a butterfly. And the caterpillar says, "You've changed."
Yeah.
And the butterfly says, "We're supposed to." And as simple and elementary as that is, it hits home every single time.
Huge impact.
Huge, because honestly, that caterpillar,
Words are
hard. That caterpillar is sitting across from the table, jealous,
Of course.
upset.
The butterfly is something he's not.
Right. But here's the thing, and here's the difference. And honestly, we may dig back into this on another episode, because as I started reading about the actual metamorphosis process,
Whoa.
and right, big word for me,
Whoa.
for a school homer, that's a big deal. So there's a lot in there that can apply to the entrepreneurial life, or just changing as a human and becoming who you're
yeah.
supposed to be. But just kind of hitting the top, that caterpillar has to go through, in those stages, an extremely dark, an extremely lonely,
Ooh.
and an extremely painful process to become that butterfly. So if we take that and we apply that to us as humans, the difference in those who are willing, who stay the same and want to point fingers, you've changed, you're not who you used to be. All you care about is success. All you care about is money, and throw in all the blame. It's the difference in somebody who wants to just go the easy route, and somebody who says, hey, I'm willing to go through what it takes to become who I'm supposed to be.
Wow.
And there is a time, and I don't, if there's any science nerds that are listening to us and want to correct me on this, because I didn't do the proper studying into all these processes.
All right, science nerds, listen up.
Yes,
This is
listen
your
up.
chance.
But from what little bit I read and understand, there is actually a time, let me see what the wording was. There is actually a time where it's in this state of metamorphosis, where it's actually, in layman terms, it's consuming itself and getting rid of the caterpillar parts
Ugh.
in order, right, and this is the painful part, in order for it to become the better version of itself. So it's literally
The butterfly.
having to, the butterfly.
Right.
So it's literally having to cut away and get rid of itself. And that's where I think a lot of people lose it on this journey, because let's be honest, our best friend is ourselves.
Sure.
And it's the hardest person for me to say no to is the guy in the mirror.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the person having that character, that self-control to make those changes, and go through that pain. That's a hard decision to make on a day-to-day basis.
And, you know, we've talked a lot about this word as well on the podcast, but somebody that's resistant to change. Wow. Let me back up. And try
We'll hit that again.
That's resistant to change.
Yeah.
Is the definition of complacent.
Absolutely.
I mean, literally, complacency is just the inability to do something different, right? Or to do something, period.
Yeah.
And so it can be difficult. There's a lot of sentimental, like you said, emotional attachment
Yeah.
to oneself, to any given situation.
Yep.
I don't want this to change. I don't want my kids to grow up.
Yeah.
They're going to grow up.
They're gonna grow up.
I don't want to move out of mom and dad's house. Well,
You should.
you better.
You should want to.
You most certainly should. Then again, I started having to pay taxes and a mortgage. I don't know. I might call them up and see if we can
You should want to.
renegotiate.
No.
I don't want to take a leap on the new job. I'm comfortable here.
Right.
I know what I'm getting. It's predictable. I
Yeah.
know this. I know these are absolutes,
Yep.
and I don't want to change. And what that does is hinder you from ever capitalizing on opportunity. It hinders you from ever being able to make any kind of legacy move, which we've talked about, which is never able to be attained without change.
Right. And, you know, as you were saying that, it reminded me, you know, growing up, I used to hear the stories all the time about the eagle, and when it's time to,
Do you want me to make a impression, do a sound effect of the eagle real quick?
if you could, that would be fantastic.
Okay, I'll work on it. Go ahead.
Okay, just randomly at a random time. I think that Well, it reminds me, the eagle, when it's time to get the baby eagles out of the nest.
Is it the one that kicks it out of the nest?
Well, no, chill. Kind of, yes. But basically what happens is when those baby eagles are first hatched, everything's real comfortable in the nest. But then a little bit at a time, the mama eagle takes a little bit of the feathers and the fur that's in that nest out of it to make it uncomfortable.
The down.
And and literally eventually makes the baby eagle so uncomfortable that it forces it out of the nest
Wow.
and forces it to fly.
Right.
And what happens is, I think that if we're not careful, growing up, I had my parents doing that, right?
Yeah.
They were conditioning me. As a father, me and my wife are working to raise our kids to eventually, honestly, force them out of the nest. Now,
Right.
you know, I'm convincing my daughters they're never going to get married.
Right, of course.
But we know
Blah, blah.
that's not true.
Right.
They're going to get out of the nest because eventually I want them all gone. So it's just me and their mama, right?
Right.
So I'm pushing them out. But what happens is, I think we get out of our parents' homes where we have somebody making us uncomfortable and forcing us to make those decisions. We become adults.
Wow.
And the only person to make us uncomfortable and force us out of that comfort nest is ourselves.
It's ourselves.
It's the person we see in the mirror.
Wow.
And if we're not willing to make ourselves uncomfortable and deal with these growing pains, then like you said, we're going to be complacent and we're never actually going to get anywhere in life. And this goes back, let me remind all of our listeners, this isn't about making a certain amount of money. This isn't about
Exactly.
reaching a certain financial or status with where you live or whatever. Whatever success means to you, whatever you set back and say, hey, this is what I want out of life, chances are you're going to have to get uncomfortable and go through some growing pains to get to that level of whatever success means for you.
Yeah, and you know, there's so much truth to this, and there's such a track record of this working. People pushing themselves beyond their comfort zones, and it working, and it changed. This is why with Paul we talk about fitness being such a big part of your mindset.
Yep.
Because in fitness, when you're at the gym and you're pushing yourself to lift heavier weights or to run farther than you ever run or whatever, you know, you're working on, it unlocks something in your mind that I've never done that before. I didn't know I was capable of that, or I always wondered if I was capable of that. It's the Marine Corps markets themselves on
Right.
this, you know, what is it that they call, I can't remember, they've got like some saying for it, but I hear the testimony of these guys all the time. It's like, that was the moment when I realized I pushed myself farther than I could ever go, and I changed.
And that's a mental decision. That,
It is.
That's not a physical.
Because it was always
decision.
there.
It was always there. It's a mental decision where they push themselves.
And it's discipline is
Yeah.
what it is. It's discipline. It's getting up when the alarm clock goes off without hitting the snooze button.
Ouch.
And, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Or pushing away the plate.
How about you stay on your side of this desk?
Or in my case, dragging the plate back.
Right.
Whatever it is, it's discipline, forcing yourself to be uncomfortable, like you said,
Right.
and to change.
Yeah.
And to see, because sometimes it doesn't feel like that there's a lot of change. And this is, even Paul was coaching me through some of my fitness stuff. And he's like, don't get on the scale every day. You're just going to disappoint yourself.
Right.
Because your body weight, ebbs and flows. And, you like that?
Ebbs and flows.
Ebbs and flows, rises and falls. And so we schedule like once a week weigh in and see how
Right.
it is.
Right.
Don't get obsessed with it, because it's that steady, consistent, small wins that result in a lifetime of change. And then 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you turn around and look back, and your old self is almost not even recognizable anymore. Whether that's
Right.
in fitness or in personal development or religion,
Yeah,
or whatever
absolutely.
that is, your Christian walk, you turn around and you don't even recognize that old version of yourself because you've come so far.
Absolutely.
Just over consistent discipline day in and day out.
And, when we talk about that, these growing pains, we're talking about emotional growing pains. We're talking about physical growing pains with having, I actually read an article the other day by a very successful fitness trainer. but he also had other businesses and
Okay.
things. And he said, you could almost feel it from his heart. He said, I hate to see, it blows my mind how many people are so successful in their business life and their family life and everything else, but they're completely letting the physical side of it go because they don't realize that, hey, you can't do those other things unless you're taking care. You can't do them long term. And so there's still some physical growing pains here that we're talking about,
Sure.
some emotional, some friendship growing pains.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, you should be surrounding yourself with people, and I see this phrase a lot all the time. Surround yourself with people who fit your future, not your past.
And let me break in
That's
here
hard.
because I was literally talking about this with one of my coworkers.
Okay.
Somebody came to me and was talking, and I won't mention his name, but shout out to him if he's listening right now, because he'll recognize he'll recognize this story. He said, "You know what? How do you manage maintaining those friendships with those people you work with when you know you're passing them and you're going to be above them
It's a good question.
in like a company hierarchy one day?" He's like, "How do you stay their friend and still advance?" And the answer was easy. You don't. And don't get me wrong, you can still be their friend, you can still be friendly, but there's a level of that cannot exist.
Right.
You know, when your mindset changes and you're doing life differently than other people, you have to make the decision: am I going to bring myself down to stay on this level, not with bad people, but with different people,
With different people.
or am I going to move on? And am I going to change? Am I going to grow?
And, it even really goes a step further than that. And this is one of the most painful, probably one of the hardest things that people ever deal with, is a lot of people deal with those type decisions with family.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And now there is one well-known guy who his mindset is, well, screw them all.
Right.
Like, look, that's family.
Right.
Some people are like, hey, that's my dad, that's my mom, that's my aunt, my whatever,
Or my wife or my husband.
yeah. There's even those cases as well. And so, but the reality is, you have to. I think a better approach on that. Still probably a painful process, but at some point, in order for you to have the personal growth that you need, be willing to look at somebody and say, hey, look, I love you and I value your opinion, but when it comes to this, I'm going to need us to just agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I need you to not voice that opinion. I love you. I want to be a part of your life. We still can be, but there has to come a point where, here's the thing: if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people.
Yeah.
And that's a very important thing. People need to give themselves permission to take care of themselves. And part of that is, if you're trying to grow and you're trying to become that person that you are destined to be, I don't care who it is. You don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to completely cut people out of your lives and erase their number out of your phone. You don't have to do that.
Delete them off Instagram.
But, right. You don't have to go to that extreme, but you do have to be willing to put up those guards.
Yeah.
Put up those fences where needed.
And like you said, you don't have to be a jerk. You can have the conversation with compassion,
Yeah.
with empathy.
Absolutely.
Where you sit down and say, look, I want you to go on this journey with me.
Yes. I am inviting you.
But whether you go or not,
Here's what it's going to look like.
I'm going.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you go or not, I'm going. Me and Mark put out that video, never try to push a rope.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's the same idea. I'm going. I want you to come with me. I want you to be on the train. But if you don't, man, you're not
Love
coming.
you.
Dave Ramsey has a thing where he goes, all right, everybody aboard the train. Oh, you're not coming? Oh, that's so sad. All right, all aboard.
All right. See ya.
And
that's
it's-
the attitude you got to have.
You've got to go. You got to go.
And so, as we kind of, there was a little bit of a whole nother direction that we were looking at, but I think we're kind of at a good spot here.
Yeah.
As we kind of wrap this thought up, we kind of go back to a resounding theme. We go back to our mission statement.
Yeah.
And that is where, one of our big goals is we want you to give yourself permission to succeed.
Yes.
As we tie that into this episode, give yourself permission to change. It's okay. It's okay to change. Just because it makes other people uncomfortable, that's okay. Give yourself permission to make the changes necessary. You know, I've seen so many times where people say, you know, getting rich is hard, being broke is hard, choose your hard.
Right.
Being married is hard.
Yeah.
Divorce is hard.
Right.
Choose your hard.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a whole list of these things. You know what? The reality is, can we just be straight up honest here?
Do it.
Life is hard.
Yeah.
Life's hard.
Yep.
Life's hard for me. Life's hard for you. Life's hard for them. Life is hard.
Yeah.
So you can sit around and stay the way you are, or you can make the most of it. You can grow through your life.
You can hurt and not grow, or you can grow while you're hurting.
I know you kind of like your mouth fell down the steps
But
as you were
it
saying
came
that,
out
but it was
right.
good. You know what? Say it again. Say it again.
Ready?
Yep.
You can hurt and not grow, or you can grow while you're hurting.
Crush it. Crush it.
And we have our first crush.
There we go.
That
You're
was
welcome.
fantastic.
That was good.
That was good stuff. That
was good.
But it's facts.
Yep.
Life stinks.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it?
Yep.
What are you going to do with it? You can sit and sulk, or you can make the most of it, and you can grow and make something of yourself. Growing hurts. But what other options do you have? What are you going to do? Sit and just exist? How depressing. How depressing. So give yourself permission to change. Don't worry about what everybody else says. At the end of the day, who you are and what you do is between you and that mirror,
That's right.
between you and God.
Yep.
And as long as you can look yourself in the mirror and be proud of who you are and the changes that you're making, you know what? Everybody else will get over it.
That's right. Yep. So, guys, that was a good episode. Good topic there. Consider us your growth partners. We're here for you.
Absolutely.
And we support you. And if you're staring in the face of change and you're being met with resistance from your circle, time to find a new circle.
Time to find a new circle.
If we're not talking about family, but you get it. If time finds peers, surround yourself with people that will support you, that are growth minded. And if you're having a hard time getting plugged in to a group like that, reach out to us. We might be able to help you.
And here at the Crush It team, we got you back.
Yeah, we know.
We've got your six.
We know all about change. That's
yes,
for sure.
Absolutely. And so we want to help.
Yeah, so reach out to us, guys. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're there. You can also always find us at thecrushitteam.com. Keep an eye on the website. A lot of big changes coming. The website.
Go check out our merch.
Yeah, go check out the merch.
We've got some new merchandise out
do.
there that I'm really excited.
The book's on there. Check that out. Also, the website is about to evolve. There's actually a new version of the website that is queued up and ready to release with the information that we're going to release in 4 weeks.
So excited.
So everything's about to change.
Stay
and
tuned.
change is good.
is good. And let's throw that in there.
Yeah, Crush It's about to turn into a butterfly.
There have been some changes
Mm-hmm.
that have been talked through, that have been worked through.
And we're slightly uncomfortable.
And we're slightly uncomfortable, a little scared,
yeah.
but we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's what Crush It's supposed to be. So, hey, come along this journey with us. Let's all change together.